Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Henning. I'm the president and CEO for the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce, proudly representing over 700 businesses in the region. And we want to welcome you to Finding Common Ground, our new podcast where we bring together business in the community. We're really excited today to have our first guest and to dig into the issues. And today we're going to focus on policy. So I want to welcome DJ Summers, who is the Director of Communications and Research Operations for the Common Sense Institute. Welcome.
It's great to be here. I like that we've got a word in common with, I'm opening this up with a terrible pun, but I hope that landed.
Absolutely.
It's great to be here. I mean, this is the kind of place where the rubber meets the road in terms of policy discussions, in terms of what CSI does in getting the word out, making sure that good, nonpartisan, dry-eyed, sober data is actually meeting people where they are in the business community. So this is an outstanding place for us to do that. We're really excited to be on.
We're so happy to have you. You know, in a world where it's hard to talk about policy at your Thanksgiving dinner, where you might avoid your family members to even discuss the world of policy, it really runs what we do day to day. So I wonder if to start off, you can share a little bit with us about what the organization you work for does. I know we probably joined about a year ago.
Yeah. No, and you've been great members. I mean, we love this area. It's fruitful for study, and a lot of exciting things are happening up here. We'll get into that as the show kind of progresses. But for starters, the Common Sense Institute is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We're a research firm. What we do is analyze the economic impacts of anything that's in the public eye at the moment. That could be a proposed policy. It could be an existing policy. It could be a new trend that's developing. You know, the Penner Group is now a minority owner for the Colorado Rockies. We'll see what that might do for the economy. Basically, anything that might affect the Colorado economy, we try to pinpoint how it's going to impact it in the long run so that people have a good idea about whether the policy is going to be a net positive for Colorado or a net negative, or for their individual community, depending on the study.
We appreciate the work you do. I think it's really important to get the data forward and to really have those points you can reference. I know that we send folks to your website because you do lots of different reporting, but I'm going to focus on two today. And before we dig into that, I want to have a little bit of fun before we just dig right into policy work.
Please, let's do it.
So my question for you, no one that works in business ever knew they were going to end up there. So my question for you is, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Okay. What did I want to be when I grew up? There were two. One, I wanted to be a baseball player. That
Nice.
petered out fairly quickly. The longest running one, the one that actually kind of is a better one, I wanted to be a concert pianist.
Ooh.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a classical concert pianist like Vladimir Horowitz or any of those greats in the 20th century. That's what I wanted to do. So still do that at least in my spare time. I do a lot of practice, spend a lot of time working on music, spend a lot of time at the piano bench. So never did quite achieve the dream of getting to the professional level, but going in and out of dingy hotel rooms on the concert circuit and anything isn't exactly a great life. So I think maybe I ended up on the good part of it, keeping it as a hobby instead.
Well, I just want people to recognize you probably don't end up where you thought you might. And so I was curious if you get to do some of that for fun, if your mad skills are still, put to good use. So
if my mad skills are put to good use, the only good use that they are for right now is entertaining myself and entertaining my friends and family and giving something to post on my Instagram page. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll do a concert benefit or something like that.
We're going to hold you to that.
Okay.
We'll hold you to this.
All right. There's a market for that kind of thing in Greeley, then.
Yeah.
Count me in.
I'll tell you, in my spare time, I wanted to be an archaeologist or a geologist. So it's ironic I live in a state with the School of Mines.
Yeah.
Also, I work definitely in support of the energy industry. And so many of those, components that settled in as organic matter now, I work in a different capacity with them. But I had no patience for that. I can only imagine if I had attempted to be the person who, sweeps the dust off the dinosaur bones. It would not have gone well for me.
Important question. Was that related to Indiana Jones?
Oh, I do love Indiana Jones. I never thought about it that way, but maybe. Perhaps,
He inspired a
perhaps.
lot of people to try to become
Yeah,
archaeologists.
yeah,
But when they
exactly.
found out it doesn't come with a
Hmm.
bullwhip, they don't exactly
I'm gonna have to explore that. I think I'm
dig
gonna
deep.
have to explore that and dig deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to speak. Well, yeah, that's great. I wanted to ask you, as we kind of dig into things, and we talk a little bit about Weld County, you've done some really interesting reporting through your work on this place. And there's a lot, I'm gonna humble brag a little bit today. There's a lot to love about this county we live in. A lot of people don't realize this is one of the fastest growing cities here in Greeley. It's also one of the fastest growing counties in Weld County, and a lot of growth that's not maybe happening in other places. So, can you talk a little bit about that in your reports, what you've seen, and where people can find out more information?
Absolutely. There are two different studies that we released at CSI over the last year, 2 years, that are specific to what's going on in Weld County and in Greeley. Now, Weld County is an interesting case study in Colorado because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, Colorado is not the Colorado of 10 years ago anymore. Our popularity among other U.S. states, they're movers as a destination, it's not what it was. We're not gaining the same number of people from other places. It's just the party is chilled a little bit. Weld County has some interesting trends that kind of keep it above water in terms of other Colorado counties. For one, it is gaining population faster than any other county, but also Weld County is one of the only counties in the state of Colorado that has an accelerating birth rate. Babies are happening here. And babies are happening elsewhere in Colorado too, but not to the rate that they are in Weld County and not at replacement rate either. So those are two population-heavy dynamics that are happening right now. People are moving to Weld County, and people are having babies in Weld County. And that makes things interesting because relative to other counties in Colorado, Weld County is comparably affordable. The median housing price here, compared to the median wages, is much more favorable here than it is, say, in Douglas County or in Boulder County or Eagle or Pitkin, even some of the western slope counties. There's just a more favorable ratio of what you make here versus what the owner-occupied housing costs. So all of those are very fertile territory for attracting new people. People want to come in. There's economic opportunity. They can afford to live here more cheaply than they can elsewhere. Things are growing, things are building, businesses are sprouting up, people are having children, establishing roots, so you know they're not just going to bounce at the first opportunity. Those are very, very positive economic indicators for a county's future prospects. Now, Greeley, as the seat here in Weld County, is especially well positioned because here in northern Colorado, your major competitor for attracting businesses is Fort Collins. For attracting businesses, for attracting families, workers, what have you. And we released a study on what's happening with Greeley and with Fort Collins. And what we found was that Greeley is projected to outpace Fort Collins in its population growth. People are coming here faster than they're going to Fort Collins. A couple reasons for that. There's probably something to do with affordability. It's cheaper to live here than it is to live in Fort Collins. For example, there's probably some other ones, could be cultural factors at play. We don't really know the why and wherefore, but we do know that it is happening and that over the next 15, 20 years, Greeley has a chance to outpace Fort Collins as the largest population center in northern Colorado. So that speaks to a lot of economic prospects here.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things we have the opportunity to do is tell the story better. And when I think about Weld County and I think about maybe some of our humble Midwestern roots here, we're not quick to always maybe do, again, brag on the
Mhm.
place we are or the things that are great about the way we're growing.
Sure.
Probably the thing that keeps businesses up at night that I hear a lot is workforce and
Mhm.
lots of the different dimensions of that. So literally when I hear you talk about this, we are growing our own opportunity here in Greeley, and we have to think about how we retain it and what that looks like, with ample water and ample opportunities for housing and space to grow.
Yep.
There's also some of that managing the growth. So I'm just curious in workforce or managing growth, was there anything noted in your study that leans in that way too. But it looks like our trend is positive for the long haul here.
Trend is positive for the long haul here. I think the most relevant recent study is just what's happening at the statewide level. So at the Colorado level, we just released a report this week on most U.S. Census Bureau numbers. They're called components of change, how our population is changing and why. And what we found is that Colorado is losing its competitive edge for domestic migration. People just aren't moving to Colorado anymore. We ranked 48th in the nation in terms of our net domestic migration per share of population, just our rate of domestic migration. Now, that's important because we're not importing our workers anymore. We need high skill, high education workers to fill the available slots of jobs that exist here. We are not getting them to the same degree that we used to get them from other states. So what makes up that delta if we're not producing them locally? And producing them locally means more children. Weld County has the edge over the rest of Colorado in that if you keep them in Weld County, that is, if they don't go out of state or they don't go elsewhere in the Denver metro region or beyond. But Weld County does have that edge. You are producing your own homegrown workers here. That is an anomaly in Colorado and something that you should probably lean into if you want to develop a homegrown workforce, because population trends are, they go with the wind. You never know what state's going to be popular next. Right now it's South Carolina. A little while ago it was Idaho. You reach back 50 years, it was a different state, somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere in New England. You can never anticipate what's going to happen in terms of a state's popularity, but you can try to bank on people filling the workforce on their own.
Yeah, I think about economic development as a trend and people who work in that space. There's always a high attention to attraction and maybe less effort made in retaining the businesses you have. So some of that workforce trend also aligns with economic development trend. And I think a lot of communities find that if they do that work on retaining business and understanding what their barriers are and removing them, they can grow some of those companies that are loyal to them, that want to stay in their place and get it locally. So it's interesting to listen to those two trends align.
Yeah.
I'm curious on the competitiveness piece. You put out quite a bit lately, and I'd love you to speak to kind of both ends of it. So when you think about competitiveness, the regulatory environment is something I'm regularly involved in on the policy side and work with our lobbyists. We don't want to see regulation take over at a pace that starts to hurt our competitiveness. On the other side, I'd also love to talk after that about, we don't want to be the bottom five. And what would it look like if we were the top five? And how do we manage that? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, let's take that one at a time. First, our competitiveness. I mean, this is a huge issue in Colorado right now. We had the Colorado Chamber come out with a report that said that we're losing businesses by the hundreds over the last couple of years, that they're packing up, they're moving. Palantir just left Denver, packed up and moved to Florida. There's a Southern Colorado Business Alliance that is coming out, writing letters to the governor, concerned about exactly the same thing. These migration numbers just came out and said Colorado is getting less popular. I mean, there's a lot going on right now.
A lot to unpack.
Lot to unpack. And it's all rolled into the same thing. The same theme is that Colorado's losing its competitive edge. And we've been running tons and tons of output. I would say that's the common thread with all of our output, is that Colorado needs to maintain its competitive edge, not just for residents, but for businesses. The two are intertwined. People want to be places with jobs, and businesses want to locate where they've got people to fill them. They operate in lockstep. So our competitiveness at the business level is going to dictate and be tied to that migration. And we've sounded the alarm on this for quite a few years. And I think it's most elegantly encapsulated with our Free Enterprise report. Our Free Enterprise Index measures Colorado's relative competitiveness in a dozen different policy areas. That's the state budget, our taxes and fees, our regulatory structure, energy, healthcare, anything that we have.
I had no idea how thick that report was. I tried to print it the other day and it's like this big, but it has so much good content in it.
It is a beast of a
Yes,
report.
it is.
But we compile all of that beast of a report into those top line findings, and that's our relative competitiveness with other states has dropped from the preceding decade. We used to be in the top, 5, sometimes top 10, depending on the metric in there, in terms of our relative competitiveness with other states, our economic competitiveness. We've sunk. We are now 17th. Our competitiveness is getting less and less. And our economic momentum index, which is in there, means something even worse. Even though our economy is relatively strong right now, it's in the top 10 in the nation. Our economic momentum, all of the headwinds that are coming, all of those developments, that is going down. It's in the middle of the pack, below the middle of the pack right now. So what we're looking at is kind of I don't want to say cliff at the end of the road, but at least the swoop down from the top of the hill, where we were at a very advantageous position relative to other states for a very long time. And I think a lot of people banked on that. And for a variety of factors, affordability, regulation, that competitiveness has started to slip. The regulation is a very important part of that. Businesses just don't want to operate in a place that is burdensome from a regulatory standpoint. They can't afford to. Those costs get passed down onto the customers and accelerate the problem of affordability at the consumer end. So you've got to kind of fuse those together. And you can take any one of the businesses that we've analyzed, any one of those verticals, energy, the greenhouse gas emissions reduction program, that roadmap that was passed out of the governor's office, healthcare. The legislature's passed nearly 200 health-related bills over the past 6 years. The list goes on. There's a regulatory environment in the state of Colorado that's gotten more burdensome for businesses operating here. And that is unfortunately one of the consequences, is that we lose competitive edge with other states when that happens.
Do you think part of the challenge too is when you're in the heyday of being in your competitive best spot, you don't really notice it. It's only when it starts to slide a little bit, you're like, oh, wait. So I'm curious, just briefly, if you can share, what do you think the roadmap looks like? I know I'm just, getting under your hood here a little bit, but if we were to look top 5, what are those things, if we don't focus on what slipped, but we say, hey, let's keep our eye on this. I know regulation is probably in that list you'll give, but any other thoughts you have? Because you're deep in the data on these things.
Deep in the data, and it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
It's a general kind of environment that we need to foster in the state of Colorado. That's really what needs to happen, is that the environmental default needs to be less regulation than more, because we need to attract businesses of all types to work in concert with each other. None of this stuff operates in a vacuum. Healthcare doesn't operate without transportation. Transportation doesn't operate without energy production. Energy production doesn't operate without a skilled workforce who can also live affordably in homes that need to be built by construction laborers who need to have good enough wages and also need to have enough of a regulatory environment that they can build homes that people can afford at the price points that they can actually shell out for. All these things are interconnected. So it's a larger environmental structure of just, we need to get into the habit culturally here at the political and commercial levels of acknowledging that regulations have consequences down the road. That is really what needs to change. But if we were number 1, or even in the top 5 again for our economic momentum, that would mean huge things, huge things. For one, more people would move into Colorado. I know a lot of Coloradans don't really want to hear that because we've added a lot over the last little while, and they might want to say,
might be one of those.
They might want to say we're full.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that you don't get to sustain the same kind of economic vibrancy. You don't get to sustain that economic growth unless you have more people. So it's kind of pick one or the other. If you want us to be a top economy, it's going to need more people. In order to have more people here, and you need to make it more attractive. But that would be the first thing, is if we were number one, that would mean more people coming in. We gained in 2015 100,000 people in 1 year. This last year, we gained a little over 24,000, so a quarter of what we gained in a single year just 10 years ago. That would reverse. That would be the number one thing. It'd be more people starting businesses, more people patronizing each of those businesses.
Driving that economic growth.
Driving that
Yep.
economic growth.
Mhm.
That would be the number one thing that would happen. And our GDP would go up commensurately. The state would grow its tax base just in terms of raw consumership. The state would have more businesses to collect capital gains taxes from whatever. We would have a broader economic growth that trickles down into people's pocketbooks. You have competitors that would lower prices in a lot of ways with certain items or services that are, only marginally available now. You would probably get a little upward pressure on housing or maybe downward pressure depending on what the regulatory structure comes out with. The point is there would be movement. There would be growth. Things would start
Even
popping
incrementally,
up.
right?
Even
Yeah.
incrementally.
Yep.
Even incrementally. But largely, it's a good thing for everybody. If there's more money in the economy, it shuffles around, it creates more jobs, it creates more opportunity, creates more resources. You have more options. More options mean better specialization. People can adopt to the roles that sprout up, and we can start innovating, even creating some new fields that other states might not because we're just attracting enough talented workers.
Yeah, I think as we wrap today, I want to make sure everyone who's watching us and joining us today understands policy matters. And I'm going to level us way up here. We've dug into the reports you shared, and I want to share with our audience a little bit how much their voice matters. I come from a family of business owners, and I think that's my why, that I do what I do today to support business owners. Can you tell us a little bit why policy matters? And then can you also point us to where people can find out a little more? Because I think the way that we activate grassroots people's voices in the process that, changes their lives every day, they need to know where to find that information. And I think that lights a lot of people on fire to get involved in the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the first part of your question, why policy matters. Look, policy is not sexy. It's just not. It's not fun to discuss, and it's not fun to think about, and it's not fun to try to implement and fight over with people, but neither is your blood pressure or the quality of your teeth or the health of your automobile or any of those other things that are supremely necessary. Policy is the skeleton that holds all of this stuff together. We all exist in this framework that's applied by policy. And the machine itself that's created by policy might go a little bit astray, and policy are the levers you use to tune it. That's what you need to do in order to shift the direction of the economy, and times the direction of the culture, is to fine-tune policy. Policy is as certain as death and taxes. And if you can't alter it to go into the right direction, then you're going to play a losing game. The culture does not simply change everything and everyone starts acting a different way. You've got to set that skeleton the right way. You've got to fine-tune the machine to go at the pace you need. So policy is supremely important. Without addressing policy, this is all just coffee shop talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you point us a little bit to where we might find some of these reports you're putting out? I know they're sent right into my inbox, but for our general watching public today, where might they find more information?
Please go to our website, commonsenseinstituteco.org. If you want to read any of our stuff, it's all there. It's lumped by category. It's lumped by author. So you can examine any one of the papers in any of our 12 or so verticals for policy. You could spend a very long time getting lost in the weeds on our stuff if you just visit our website.
I have a feeling, DJ, if you stayed here, we could get lost in the weeds. We could occupy the podcast studio for another 3 hours just
It's not
talking
like
about
I want to go
policy.
back to the office.
Okay,
If you want to
good.
go
Let's just
another
go get
round,
coffee.
then yeah.
Let's just grab some coffee. Is there anything else you want to share today before we close out the day, just about what you do or, and ask of the people that are watching today?
Competitiveness matters. Competitiveness does matter. People want to go in a place that is attractive, where there is opportunity, and that competitiveness is inside the skeleton of policy. Those are the only things that we really can grasp that are at least marginally under our control. So, paying attention to this, paying attention to what is going on with Colorado's competitiveness and how we got here is supremely important. I encourage everybody in the business community, everyone who's not even in the business community, who's just interested in public affairs, to educate yourself on what's happening with the Colorado economy, what's happening with the growth of Colorado's population, and the policies enacted that have made it that way.
Well, thank you for that. You've been a great guest on our inaugural podcast. We'll look forward to having you back.
I'm honored to have been the first one. This was a great time. I hope that I'm the third and the fifth and the ninth and the final one.
We're going to keep it rolling for sure.
Please.
We definitely also appreciate the work you do at the Common Sense Institute. It is so valuable, and we'll get more eyes on that work. I want to thank today the NOCO Podcast Studio for hosting us. They're a small business who's been involved with the Chamber for many, many years now. And also want to thank you for joining us for Finding Common Ground. We're going to continue to do podcasts as part of our Beyond the Horizon initiative with the Chamber. And our goal is just to reach a larger audience about what's happening in our city, in our region, in our state. And really, ROI of the Chamber is to get more involved in being part of the voice for business. So thank you for joining us today. DJ, thanks for being our guest, and
Jamie,
we'll
pleasure.
join you again soon.